Hello, welcome to the Girl Don't Settle channel. If you haven't been here before, my name is Andrea. I'm an empowerment coach and personal reinvention mentor for women who have struggled hard, whether it's with addiction, trauma, growing up with alcoholic parents, drug addict parents, who have gone through abusive relationships, who are just sick and tired of being sick and tired and want to reinvent themselves from the inside out so that they can build a life that they love, create a life that they love, and start to feel confident from the inside out. So today's video is brought to you from Costa Rica. I'm in San Jose at a girlfriend's house on her awesome balcony overlooking the entire city. But with that being said, I wanted to pre-warn you that it might get a little windy out here. Okay, so please bear with me. As you may know, I am traveling the world. I'm living out my long-term dream after living over a decade in depression, despair, addiction. I've finally been able to, combat a lot of my own demons, a lot of my own issues, and build up the confidence so that I can finally live out what makes my heart happy. Traveling can make it really difficult to find an appropriate place to film these videos so that I could sit down and chat with you with good lighting, good sound, not too many distractions, and all of that fun stuff. But you know what? I make do wherever I go, and I can't complain because you guys, I have seen some of the most beautiful spots in Central America so far, and I plan to continue my journey. My next stop is actually Mexico, and no, I'm not going to be doing all-inclusive resorts with unlimited alcohol. I'm going to be traveling all around Mexico, not just staying in one spot. And if you guys are interested in following along on my journey, you can come see me on my Instagram page, which is also Girl Don't Settle, but it has underscores. So it's girl_don't_settle. So come check me out there and follow along with my travels. And I also share a lot of, tips and advice and empower you to live your best life over there as well. So don't be shy and come see me, and even message me if you'd like. If you have any questions, concerns, or you just want to chat, I'm always here, and I'd love to meet new people. So without further ado, let's get on the topic of today. Today's topic is near and dear to my heart. We are talking about the long-term effects of having grown up with alcoholic or drug addicted parents. This is near and dear to my heart because, you guys, I grew up with an alcoholic mother who was very insecure, who had a plethora of addictions, and so I had basically every single symptom, characteristic, or effect that I'm going to be talking about today. You name it, I had it. So if you grew up in a home with an alcoholic parent or even a drug addict parent, you are most likely considered an ACOA, an adult child of an alcoholic. If you're shocked that there's actually a term for this, you're not alone. I was also shocked when I found this out as well. And apparently there's even not only resources, but there are also recovery groups specifically for ACOAs. And via a simple Google search, you may be able to find a support group near you if that interests you. So I would suggest checking that out if you feel like you could use some support, especially after watching this video. So ACOAs usually turn out one of two ways. You may have become an addict yourself, or you may have gone the exact complete opposite direction and steered clear of any drugs or alcohol. And that makes complete sense. Neither way is right or wrong. You were just doing the best you could given what you got. Growing up with an alcoholic or drug addict parent, you may have become super responsible or super irresponsible. But no matter which direction you went in, you may relate to some of the characteristics that I'm about to share with you. So the following are 10 characteristics that we often find in ACOAs. Number 1 is you may have an obsessive need for acceptance or approval. Now, if this sounds like you, just know that that is completely normal. You see, growing up with an addicted parent can often cause us to be people pleasers because you may have lacked acceptance, love, affection from your addicted parent as you were growing up. Or it may have been a vicious cycle where, when they were sober and after a night of binging, they may be very apologetic, very sorry, very loving, and making up for the bad behavior. And then when they were intoxicated, they may have, shown aggression, anger, they may have, done something to you that was embarrassing, whatever it may be. And they may have even put you down verbally and abused you emotionally, maybe even physically. Maybe they had you feeling like you were never good enough, right? You might have felt as a child, with a child's brain and processing system, you may have internalized their behavior. You may have felt like maybe you did something wrong. Maybe there's something wrong with you for your parent to want to continue to use drugs or alcohol. And as an adult, you may know better. You may know that, of course, that wasn't your fault. But in your child mind, you most likely internalized it. And so even though you know the difference as an adult, you could still see the patterns of wanting acceptance from others, love, approval from others, and becoming a people pleaser makes total sense. Your life may have been chaotic and you might not have known what to expect on a daily basis. So you were probably oftentimes, trying to please your parent, your addicted parent, trying to, appease them and please them so that maybe, just maybe, they wouldn't use. Maybe they would stay sober. Or maybe they wouldn't lash out on you, right? So if this sounds like a trait or a characteristic that you've taken on, please know that you're not alone and that is completely normal. But I also want to know that it is not your responsibility to please people. It is not your responsibility to make people accept you or love you. It is your job to do that for yourself. And once you have your own personal self-approval and you know that you're a good person, you know that you love yourself and your cup is full because you've filled up your cup, you no longer have to feel the burden of trying to, find approval in others, find acceptance in others, or feel like you always constantly have to say yes to everything, and you actually learn to put up boundaries with people. Number 2 is a need for control. Let me know in the comments below if you resonate with this one. You might have noticed throughout your life that if things aren't in your control, you feel uneasy, okay? Or this might have shown up in your life as an eating disorder. So you may not have become an alcoholic or a drug addict, but maybe it's showing up as an eating disorder. A lot of times women with eating disorders talk about the fact that it was the one thing in their life that they can control, is their consumption of food. Okay, so this is a control issue. This may develop into full-blown OCD disorder. Okay, so you might have to have everything in a certain way and do things in a certain method. And if it doesn't work out the way that you wanted it to, or if people don't do it the way that you want them to, it might drive you nuts. This can also show up as perfectionism. I know this one all too well. When I do something, it has to be perfect. If I'm going to apply myself and create something or, start a project, I really want it to be perfect. But sometimes this could be to a fault, okay? Because nothing in life is perfect, let's be honest. And sometimes we can obsess over something, and this can be detrimental because this can lead us to not accomplishing or finishing a project. Or this could lead to unrealistic expectations out of life. As we know, especially women like us who have gone through a lot of struggles in our life, we know that there's so much in life that we cannot control, especially external circumstances. We can't control what happens to us. The only thing that we can control, and this is what I empower women to know, is that we can control how we react to circumstances, but also we can control how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about our lives. This crazy need for control often comes from the fact that if you grew up with an addicted parent, you probably grew up in a lot of chaos and uncertainty because you had no control over, what your day-to-day life was going to look like. Your parents had all the control. You were just a child. So as you became an adult, you may have developed this obsessive need to control your life, control others, control how things turn out. And again, all of these traits that I'm going to be mentioning today, all these characteristics make complete sense given the circumstances that you were given as a child. So it is no wonder that you would want to, feel in control in most areas of your life when your childhood was so out of control. Number 3 on my list is becoming a caretaker. If you can relate to this one, please do not be shy and let me know in the comments below. I know that I definitely can relate to this one. So oftentimes as ACOAs, we become like caretakers for those around us. We tend to feel this responsibility to take care of those around us. This could be because, you had to take care of your alcoholic or drug addict parent when they were inebriated. Maybe you had to clean up the mess behind them. Maybe you had to put them to bed because they fell asleep on the floor. Maybe you had to do a lot of caretaking for your younger siblings growing up because your parents weren't always able to be there to support the family. For whatever reason it may be, oftentimes we take on the role of caretaker and we carry this role throughout our lives. This can also show up in relationships where we feel like we can fix people, we want to fix people. So I don't know if you can relate to this, but this can show up oftentimes in our romantic relationships. You may find that you attract broken men. You may find that you attract men who want to be fixed or don't want to be fixed, and you may just see them as broken and want to fix them. And as you know, this isn't healthy. This can lead to a codependent relationship, but more on that later because that's also a sign of, having grown up in an alcoholic or drug addict family. And there's a few problems with taking on the caretaker role. One of the issues might be that you are always so busy taking care of everyone else and everyone else's needs that you struggle to find time for yourself. And I am big on promoting self-care. Self-care is so crucial, especially if you're raising a family. You want to make sure your cup is full so that you can be the best mom and put your best foot forward with your family and taking care of your family's needs, okay? The other issue with this, especially again in intimate relationships, is that it can turn out to be a codependent relationship, and there's an imbalance there when really a partnership should be equal. A partnership should be give and take, but oftentimes you may find yourself in relationships where you're doing all the giving and they're doing all the taking. There's absolutely no problem with being a good person and wanting to take care of those you love, as long as you're doing it in a healthy manner and you're not completely one-sided on it. And again, as long as you're taking time to take care of yourself as well. And also as long as you know that you are worthy, you are a worthy woman, you're a worthy human, whether you take care of others or not. That does not make you valuable as a human. You are already valuable just on your own as you are. So you don't need to do that to be lovable. You are lovable just as you are. Number 4 is this innate feeling of being different. This one is very near and dear to my heart because I suffered with social anxiety, crippling social anxiety for most of my life because of this feeling of being different or not being enough. Okay, because not only did I grow up in a chaotic, addicted family, I also grew up being molested by my step-grandfather for multiple years in my childhood, and I was also bullied in school. So all of that mixed together really left me feeling different. I felt like I couldn't connect. I felt like I was just different from the others and no one would ever be able to relate to me. But this is a huge one when it comes to growing up in an addicted home. Because oftentimes, especially as children and teenagers, we don't realize that there are actually a lot of families similar to yours, okay? In fact, studies show that 1 in 4 children have grown up with an addicted family member. But you didn't know this as a child, right? So you may have gone through life thinking that you were different, that your family was different, and you probably carried a lot of shame and that feeling of not being able to relate to others. You probably wondered to yourself, why can't my family be normal? Why am I not normal? Why wasn't I blessed with a normal life, a normal family? And this may have led you to disassociate with people. This may have left you, secluding yourself and not really befriending people. This, again, like myself, may have led to bullying and isolation, or not being able to trust others. Or worse, it may have led to that feeling of just not being good enough. Which leads me to number 5 on the list, which is a feeling of not being good enough. The limiting belief, I am not enough, is a common one. I see it all too often with my clients. This is a very common one, and not only for women who have grown up in addictive families, but there's all sorts of reasons for us women not feeling good enough. But if you grew up with an alcoholic or drug addicted parent, it makes complete sense that you would feel a sense of not being good enough. This could be because you were told, straight up, you were just told while you were growing up that you weren't good enough, that you couldn't do anything right. You may have been emotionally or verbally abused as a child, especially if you had an addictive parent that said hurtful and awful things while under the influence. Whether they meant it or not, it doesn't mean that it didn't affect you, okay? The thing is, when we are children, again, we internalize things, and when our parents say something to us in a negative manner, we believe it. We're a child. We have no reason to believe otherwise. And we look up to our parents as children. So we really, truly, strongly take what they say to heart. And this can have detrimental long-term effects on our psyche and our perception of ourselves and the world around us. And this is where the belief that I am not enough comes from. You may be thinking, but Andrea, neither of my parents were ever emotionally or verbally abusive to me from what I recall, but for some reason I still feel this sense of not being good enough or not being enough. Well, let me tell you, that's okay. That's completely normal as well. The feeling of not enoughness doesn't have to be because someone straight up told you that you're not enough, but it could just be a sense that you felt within you because, like I mentioned earlier, it might be because you thought that it was your fault that your parents didn't get sober. Maybe you thought that you had done something wrong in order to have received this behavior from your parents. Maybe you didn't feel like you were enough for your parents to get clean and sober. Maybe you thought if only you could just be better, your parents would straighten out. And you can't blame your child's mind for feeling that way. That is completely 100% acceptable behavior from a child. So show yourself compassion. And if you have to, do some inner child work and show your inner child, your child self compassion. This is something that I walk women through in my 10-week program, the Radically Reinvent Yourself program. And it is quite the release and can really do wonders for how you see yourself and your life right now as an adult. And before I go on to number 6, I want to say that you are enough. You are good enough. You've always been good enough. And you don't have to prove that to anyone else. You are inherently worthy and enough just as you are, without any of the extras. Anything that you do above and beyond just being yourself is just extra. It's just a cherry on top. But you, just as you are, is good enough. And I know you may not believe it yet, but you can get there. You can retrain your brain, and that is what I help women do. So if that is something that interests you, do not hesitate to contact me. I would love to help you with that. So number 6 on the list is you may feel like you're constantly on high alert. You may be very aware of your surroundings when you walk into a party or walk into a room. You may notice everyone's behavior. You may be like a detective, And this is completely understandable because on a day-to-day basis, you may have had a lot of uncertainty and not really knowing what you were coming home from school to, or, how your parents were going to act in the morning or in the evenings or on the weekend. You may have had to really assess each and every situation in order to know what persona to put on or what character to take on that day. You have to understand that you grew up in chronic stress because of all of the uncertainty and chaos in your life. So it would make sense that now as an adult, and probably throughout your whole life, your nervous system was completely out of whack and constantly in fight or flight, waiting for the next bad thing to happen or chaotic thing to happen. This is something that I really had to learn and I really had to work on, and I constantly am still working on, because I actually developed a lot of phobias. I developed social anxiety. I developed chronic stress because of the way that I grew up, and that is completely normal. But as adults, we now have the power to look at our nervous system, look at the effects that our trauma has had on us, and reverse it, and learn coping techniques, learn different ways to relax the nervous system, all things that I am able to help women with now, which is a blessing for me. And you could do this through several different breathing techniques, grounding techniques, and my ultimate favorite, EFT tapping, which I was just recently certified in. So now I'm able to help other people and other women, get control of their nervous systems, which has been a blessing for me. It has been a life changer, a game changer for me. I've been using EFT tapping for several years now, and I highly recommend it to anyone who's looking to reduce stress, reduce anxiety, and really just calm down the nervous system altogether. Number 7 on the list is secrecy. You may notice that you're prone to secrecy. I know for myself, I definitely was, because not only was my mother an addict, and sort of like a closet addict, but she was also very secretive. She also felt a lot of shame and insecurity, so she never wanted me to share any of our life with others. She was constantly telling me, let's not talk about that, don't tell anyone that. So I always was sworn to secrecy with my mother, and also having been molested as a child, I kept that secret in for a long time. So I know all about secrecy and being very private. So you may notice that in yourself as well. Another reason why you may be prone to secrecy is because we're often ashamed of how our family home is and our family life is. So we tend to go to school, go to work, and pretend like everything is fine. So we're so used to keeping our family secret a secret that this can kind of trickle into other areas of our life, and we can just tend to be secretive overall and very private about our private lives, our personal lives. I mean, this can be okay, but usually it becomes excessive, and it really keeps us blocked off from, opening up to others and really sharing our experiences. And the thing is, in life, we need real, strong, authentic connections with other humans in order to feel complete and to feel whole. But if we're always putting up a wall and we're always being so secretive and private, it is very hard to build those authentic connections. So you may notice that it is a pattern in your life that isn't so great, that isn't so healthy, that isn't so conducive to the life that you want. So tell me, do you feel like you might be a little too secretive, a little bit too private with your life? Comment below and let me know. Number 8 is one that I suffered with for a very, very long time, until just recently, a few years ago, when I got sober for the second time, the last time. I was never able to finish projects that I started. I was always all over the place. And this was either, one, because I was ADHD and all over the place mentally, so I was never able to completely put my focus on one project in order to complete it. But the other one was relating to the feeling of not being good enough. So sometimes I would start these big, overachieving projects, and I wouldn't finish them, I think internally, because I thought I would never be good enough to really, succeed, or I would never be, good enough to really truly accomplish this in the way that I wanted to. So this can show up in different areas of your life. Or this may be because you lack structure growing up. I know that I can definitely relate to that one. And I actually had to teach myself structure as an adult, which was difficult, but doable. And because I knew that if I wanted to start being the type of woman that I always envisioned myself to be, which was a woman who, finishes her projects, finishes things that she starts, and goes after her dreams and starts a business and all of that fun stuff, I knew that I had to start completing projects. I knew that I needed discipline in my life. I knew that I needed structure in my life. And I had to train myself to do that. I had to reparent myself. And if this is something that you struggle with, I want you to know that you're not a lost cause, and that I am proof of that. that you can, train yourself as an adult and reparent yourself. It's never too late to find structure in your life. And it's never too late to go back and finish that project that you once started. Number 9 is boundaries, lack thereof, should I say. So we oftentimes lack boundaries because we don't even know what real healthy relationships are supposed to look like. Boundaries? Like, what are boundaries, right? You may notice that you do certain things that your friends or your significant other thinks is ridiculous or inappropriate, but to you it seems normal because that's how you grew up, or that's how your parents acted, or you were never told otherwise. You were never told, that such a thing was inappropriate. Or maybe you have issues with boundaries with others and you let other people take advantage of you. You let people walk all over you. And this can also, relate back to the people pleasing. In your intimate relationships, you might have problems putting up boundaries, and you allow, maybe you allow men to take advantage of you or treat you poorly because maybe the way that you were raised, this was normal. Maybe this was normalized in your life. Or maybe you struggle to put up boundaries because you've lost your voice. Oftentimes when we grow up in chaotic or abusive homes, we lose our voice. We lose our ability to stand up for ourselves. So we put up with things that we don't deserve. And the more we allow people to walk all over us or do what they want to us, the more they're going to continue to do it and take advantage of that. And so it becomes this awful, vicious cycle. And a lot of times women who grew up in addicted families find themselves in narcissistic relationships, so relationships with narcissists, or abusive relationships, or even, replicating their own upbringing and end up in relationships with an alcoholic or drug addict. And I see this a lot. I see this happening all around me, and it really hurts my heart. But if you're watching this right now and you resonate with that and you can relate to that and you feel like you struggle with putting up boundaries and you're being taken advantage of or abused, I want you to know that you do not need to put up with that, and that you can say no, and that you are worthy of happy, healthy relationships with boundaries, and that you can, build up your confidence and your self-worth to a point where you feel confident putting up boundaries, healthy boundaries with those around you and those you love, so that you can get your needs met as well. And that brings me to number 10 on the list, and that is that oftentimes we can find ourselves in unhealthy relationships, right, ladies? How many times have you said, why do I always attract the same guy? Why do I always attract the same type? How do I always end up with the assholes? Or how did I end up with another narcissist? Or why can't I just trust men? Why do I always have to have trust issues? Why do I always end up with cheaters? Well, if you've asked yourself any of these questions, I'm here to tell you that it is not your fault. It is not your fault because you did not choose how you were to grow up. You did not ask to be shown love in a certain way. And it was up to your parents to really show you what loving, healthy relationships look like. And if they didn't, then what else were you to do? The thing is, we do the best we can given what we got. And if you weren't taught otherwise, then how are you to know any better? But the beauty of all this is that now you're an adult. Now, as an adult, you can empower yourself to learn about healthy relationships, learn all you can about healthy boundaries and healthy relationships, and then apply what you learn to your life. But as ACOAs, most of the time, our relationship issues stem from limiting beliefs. Whether that's a belief that men are not trustworthy, that we don't know how to pick men, or that there's no good men in the world, that we aren't worthy of healthy, happy relationships, that we aren't good enough to find a good man, or that we don't deserve better. These are negative, limiting beliefs. Because they are beliefs that aren't exactly true. They're just true in our own minds, and they limit us. And even though these limiting beliefs are usually from childhood and they're deeply ingrained into our psyche and into our minds, they are removable. They are abolishable. And I have a 3-step process for doing this. And I also do this through EFT tapping. So again, if this is something that you'd like to work on, if you're finding that you suffer with limiting beliefs that are preventing you from living healthy, happy, and fully, you can always reach out to me. I'd love to help you with unblocking yourself. And I know that the simple fact that you're watching this video right now means that you have been searching for answers and that you are becoming more self-aware and that you're learning about yourself. And I want you to know that I'm so proud of you. This is such a beautiful thing, because once we become more aware and the more we learn about ourselves and why we do what we do, the more empowered we become to change our lives and to start getting better results from our lives. And believe it or not, patterns that you may have had your whole entire life, things that you feel like are just part of your identity, stuck as part of your identity, can be reversed, can be changed. Brain science has proven that our brains are retrainable, and I am living proof of that because I've done this for myself and I help clients do it every day through the Radically Reinvent Yourself program, through EFT tapping, and through one-on-one coaching. And there's no greater feeling than taking back control of your own life, retraining your brain, calming down your nervous system, and really starting to focus on healing your inner child, healing yourself from the trauma that you've endured, because you deserve it. And when you do this for yourself, the whole game changes, my friend, and life starts to open up for you. And that's exactly what I want for you. So there you go. Those are the 10 characteristics of ACOAs, and you may have related to one or none of those. But I'm sure if you grew up with an addict in your family that you related to at least one of them. And just to go over all of the ones that I mentioned today, I've actually created a checklist for you so that you don't have to keep rewatching this video to go over the 10 that I mentioned. You'll be able to find a link to the checklist below. And if you enjoyed this video and if you learned anything about yourself and feel a little bit more empowered from watching this video, I hope that you won't hesitate to subscribe to the Girl Don't Settle channel. Come see me on Instagram, follow my travel adventures, and maybe even come check us out on Facebook. I have a private free Facebook group for women empowerment. It's also called Girl Don't Settle. I hope to see you there. I hope to see you around. Please stay in touch, and I'll see you next week for my next empowering video. Bye for now. I love you.